Hi, everybody. This is Bruce Bishop from ChronicleT.com. We're back with the high school Blitz with Matt Douglas and Tim Alcorn from AM 930 WEOL. How's it going, guys?
Bruce Bishop, there's no better way to spend a few moments in the Chronicle Telegram studios than with you and Matt Douglas. Where else would you rather be than right here, right now?
Couldn't disagree. It's absolutely what I was thinking.
What a hot intro. Yeah. Lame segue
Look
time.
at that.
All right, guys. So it's been super hot outside. So let's go ahead and talk about who's hot, who's not.
Wow, that's pretty creative there. Who's hot, who's not? Well, as far as Lorain County High School football is concerned, who's hot? Well, there are 5 teams that are 2-0 as we head into week 3. We've got 3 teams in the Southwestern Conference that are unbeaten so far. The Amherst Comets have had 2 very impressive wins, led by their great running back, Kennedy Scaglioso. We love that name, Kennedy Scaglioso. So Amherst at 2-0 on the year. Avon 2-0 on the season after a big win last Friday night against Olmstead Falls. Avon Lake also 2-0 on the year, and Avon Lake will be playing this Friday night. Vermilion has gotten off to a 2-0 start, and Elyria Catholic, they only won 3 games all last year. They're off to a very nice 2-0 start. So that's who's hot, but Matt, who's not?
Well, the good news, Tim, is we're only in week 2 of the season, so there's still plenty of time for the following 6 teams to get some wins. But, yeah, 6 teams in Lorain County having struggles out the gate, starting off the season 0-2. Wellington, obviously a rough year last year. They're still looking for their first win in over a year right now. Brookside came out. They played 2 tough games to start off the season against Elyria Catholic and Vermilion. Those were stepping stones for them. A lot to learn for them as they move on. Keystone with a tough start to the schedule as well. Losing to a 2-0 Cloverleaf team now. It's been a while since that's been said, but Cloverleaf on the right track. They fell to them last week. Bay the week before. Oberlin with their tough schedule. They've started off 2-0. Elyria still falling on some hard times opening the season against Avon Lake last week. A rough loss to a very good Bedford team in the Lake Erie League as well. And then Midview, talk about tough starts to the season. I mean, it's been a long time since they've been 0-2, but they ran into a buzzsaw that is Lorain, one of the top schools here in Lorain County. And then last week, running into North Ridgeville, a team that knew it was a rivalry, knew they had a chance to win that trophy back, and they went out there and they got the job done with a late field goal to knock off Midview.
Yeah, and Bruce, to follow up on your point, in all seriousness, it has been very, very hot. And yet, if you've been reading the news stories in the Chronicle Telegram, I know we've had things on WEOL. Player safety and player concerns are of the utmost importance to these coaches. They've moved some practices indoors. There's been some real early morning practices this week just to beat the heat a little bit before the heat of that sun really gets down on those kids during the day. And, of course, they keep them hydrated. Water, water, water. So who's hot? Yeah, the kids are hot as far as practicing, but, boy, their safety is of the utmost importance. So it's good to hear those stories, and it's good to hear that the coaches and the administrators, they're doing all they can.
Yeah, without a doubt. I mean, when it's hot like this, just make sure you're drinking plenty of those fluids as you head out to the football fields.
Right on. Okay, so one of our usual segments is we do the recap. We covered a lot of them there, but anything else we want to cover on a recap from last week?
Well, as far as week 2 was concerned, I mentioned earlier, boy, Avon with a huge win over Olmstead Falls. And Olmstead Falls, a team that's usually at the top in the SWC. They've been a perennial playoff team, and boy, Avon has their number. I mean, they have crushed the Bulldogs 3 times in the last 2 years with that playoff game last year. So Avon really seems to have figured out that triple option that Olmstead Falls runs. They got a great performance from a junior running back that we'll talk a little bit more about a little bit later on in the video. So that's a game that stood out, especially following Avon's subpar performance against Akron Buchtel to open up the year. So nice bounce-back game for the Avon Eagles. And then you alluded to the great game we had on WEOL last Friday night, that Midview North Ridgeville game. North Ridgeville hadn't won that big rivalry showdown since 2010. Back and forth, wild affair, 38 total points in the second quarter alone. And then the game-winning field goal by North Ridgeville in the last minute. Midview had a chance to get what would have been a game-winning field goal for them, but bobbled snap. They weren't able to get the kickoff. What a great win for the Rangers, 31-30.
Yeah, I'd like to point out Avon Lake, too. I thought North Olmsted could give them some troubles last year. Avon Lake lost to the Eagles in overtime. this year they came out with vengeance, ran all over the Eagles, came away with an absolutely huge victory. So they go into the season 2-0 now against their rivals. Is Coach Matt Kostelnik calls them South, or as we know them as Avon, yes.
And so before we go on to our next topic, guys, let's talk about our good friends at LCCC.
Well, of course, we thank the great people at Lorain County Community College for sponsoring this weekly video segment. And as you can see behind us, Stocker Center, one of the great parts of Lorain County Community College now in its 38th year. So much going on. Broadway, as far as the quality of productions is concerned, they've got a big show coming up on Tuesday night, September 11th, the history of rock and roll. There is so much going on over at the Stocker Center with the theaters, the things that you can really watch and take part in at Stocker. It's just a huge part of the complex over at Lorain County Community College.
Yeah, just a great venue. I mean, and that adds the community part of community college. I mean, that's something that everyone gets to utilize with great shows that they put on there. And trust me, you're missing out if you haven't been there for a show.
Well, we mentioned touring Broadway productions. They have musicians, local artists, the 3 theaters. So anything and everything that's happening culturally as far as Lorain County is concerned, you can check it out at the Stocker Center at Lorain County Community College.
I was just out there today. It's a great place.
Awesome. Just a great place. Proud graduate.
All right, guys, so let's move on here. We're going to talk about some outstanding folks. One of the things we do is we tend to talk about certain names over and over again.
Like Kennedy Scaglioso.
But today, we're actually not going to do a whole lot of talking about them because there are a lot of other players that have been really stepping up. And let's talk about some names that maybe we don't mention every week.
Wow, some new kids on the block.
New kids on the block.
Yes. Maybe they have the right stuff.
Yeah, I like that. I see what you did there.
Oh, no.
Who do you think, Matt Douglas, as far as a new kid on the block? Maybe not necessarily new as far as their football program is concerned, but one that we haven't talked a lot about in the first 2 weeks.
We haven't talked much about Elyria Catholic. I think maybe part of that is because they've had such dominating victories in their first 2 weeks, knocking off Brookside in week 1, another big victory over Villa Angela St. Joseph. But something should be said about Cameron English. Their quarterback goes out, throws 22 of 29 this week, over 200 yards passing for the second straight week. That's a guy who's coming from a run-heavy offense who's now getting that opportunity to air it out. Coach Brian Fox said he was going to do that when he took over control of this team, and well, he's decided to do it, and it's paying off for him as they look very good going into week number 3.
They sure do. A big ball game with Cleveland Central Catholic coming up on Friday night. A couple of names that I want to mention as far as new kids on the block per se. A young man at Vermilion has really put together some quality games in the first 2 weeks of the season. Jonah File, he really is an outstanding weapon for Vermilion's quarterback, Seth Hurd. But, man, when you've got somebody like Jonah File that you can put the ball in their hands and just make things happen, he has had 2 tremendous games for Vermilion so far against Oberlin and, of course, last week in their win against the Brookside Cardinals. And we alluded to earlier, he's been mentioned a couple of times, but Nick Peruk, a junior running back for the Avon Eagles, he came up with a huge game against Olmstead Falls last week. He's a guy that you don't hear a lot about. Now, he had some injuries last year, so it kind of put his sophomore year into a state of chaos. But, boy, he's come back at least in his junior year to get things going against Olmstead Falls, had a huge performance. Boy, if they got Malloy throwing the football and they got Peruk running the football, that Eagle offense is going to be tough to stop.
Yeah, it's a very scary offense. Again, 200 yards rushing for Peruk this week, and he just looks good. Regardless of who he's going up against, as you mentioned, he got some carries at the varsity level as a sophomore, and you can see that's carried over into his junior year because he's really helping lead that team.
And Blake Ruffner over at Firelands had a big ball game for the Firelands Falcons. Again, we haven't really talked about him in the first couple of weeks of the year. Firelands got their first win last Friday night, and he had a terrific performance.
Yeah, they opened the season with a tough loss to Edison, dealt with some injuries throughout that game, but had 2 touchdown passes this week against New London to get Firelands back into the win column. They've got a big game coming up this week. They're certainly going to be utilizing him as they take on Vermilion.
And we have one very special new kid on the block. You talk about new. How about a newborn? Yes, congratulations goes out to Keystone head coach Don Griswold. He and the lovely Mrs. Griswold became the proud parents of a baby boy over the weekend. So, boy, Bruce, it doesn't get any more new kid on the block than a new baby Griswold. So congratulations to them. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's a fresh new kid. I mean, you can't get any newer than that one in that situation. But, yeah, congratulations, their second child. Welcome to the club, Coach Griswold. And he's a very proud papa. I've been speaking with him.
All right, so before we break out into song here, we're going to move on very quickly.
The right stuff. There you
go. Well, I knew it. It was coming. All right, where are you guys going to be this week?
Big week on AM 930 WEOL and on the mobile app and online at WEOL.com. We've got our normal 3-game Friday coming up, a radio game featuring Vermilion and Firelands. It's a great rivalry game out there in the western end of the county. Vermilion off to that 2-0 start. They'll be hosting Firelands, 1 up and 1 down on the year. We've talked about a couple of kids that should really stand out in that ball game with Ruffner from Firelands and, of course, Seth Hurd and Jonah File from Vermilion. That should be an outstanding matchup. 2-0 teams going at it in our Stream 2 ball game, Avon and Avon Lake. That should just be a war over at Avon Lake High School. We mentioned Nick Peruk from Avon had a great game last week. You mentioned Connor Riggs from Avon Lake. How about those two running games going up against one another?
Yeah, I can't wait to see how that one works out. I mean, especially with the SWC. I was looking back on that, Tim. The last 4 seasons, it's been undefeated teams that have won the SWC. Wow. So you get a loss, you're essentially out of the conference title running. So that makes this game this much bigger in week number 3 between 2 great rivals across the tracks in Avon Lake and Avon.
Should be a great one. And then our Tri-C Medina County matchup will feature, it will be Black River taking on Ontario. That's the Medina County matchup. Black River coming off a very tough loss at the hands of Northwestern. So we'll see if the Pirates can bounce back. And then, Matt, we've got some Saturday afternoon football and another great rivalry game Saturday afternoon on the mobile app and on the website.
Yeah, what would rivalry week be without one of the best in Lorain County? And that's Lorain and Elyria at the brand new Ely Stadium. They're going to christen that with this great rivalry. They did have the one game in there already. Avon Lake defeated Elyria in that one, but I can't wait to see how this one plays out because, as they say, when it comes to these rivalry games, throw those records out the window. They don't matter anymore. It's all about who wants that victory more, and we're going to find out on Saturday.
Boy, Elyria would love nothing more than to get that first win of the year against Lorain High. So, again, Elyria-Lorain, that's a Saturday afternoon game. So all you Titan and Pioneer fans, Saturday afternoon over at the brand-new Ely Stadium. If you weren't there for the first game against Avon Lake, get over there Saturday. It is absolutely beautiful. Just a beautiful complex.
Okay, guys. So it's time to wrap this thing up. We're going to get into our Orthopedic Associate plays of the week. Feature so good that it's not one play, it's at least 2.
Well, we each get to pitch a play of the week.
That's right.
So since Matt started last week, I'll go first this week. And Matt and I were together for this Orthopedic Associates play of the week. Matt and I did the ball game along with Matt Lodi over at North Ridgeville last Friday night as the Rangers took on the Midview Middies. We mentioned earlier, what an unbelievable game. And my Orthopedic Associates play of the week, sophomore kicker for North Ridgeville, Aiden Vanover. He had missed a field goal earlier in the fourth quarter. They bring him back out there in the waning moments of the ball game, and a 10th grader knocks through a 32-yard field goal for North Ridgeville to end the drought against the Midview Middies. They had not beaten Midview since 2010. Aiden Vanover, hats off to you, man. That is so cool. 32-yard field goal as a sophomore. And you think about the fact, he doesn't graduate until 2021. So at his 10-year reunion, his 20-year, his 40-year reunion, all the way down the road, they're going to talk about it. They're going to talk about the fact it's a moment that he'll have for the rest of his life. Hey, Aiden, remember when you hit that kick your sophomore year? They'll talk about it when he's old and gray. So great Orthopedic Associates play of the week. Aiden Vanover, hats off to you. And I know you got a big play as well.
Yeah, certainly. Well, you took that one, so I was trying to find something else out there. Plenty of teams in Lorain County, and I thought, coming off a loss, you got to do something big to get that momentum going. And that's what Firelands quarterback Blake Ruffner and running back Caden Bombeck did. 90 yards for the opening score against New London. They got the tone set right off the back in that game. So, I mean, what better way to do it than that? I think last week we gave it to an opening kickoff that went 90 yards. This is just as important. I mean, when you talk about coming off a loss in week 1, especially a Firelands team that didn't lose until week 7, week 8 last season, you got to do something right to get that momentum back, and that's exactly what Blake Ruffner and Caden Bomback did on that opening play. So I chose that as my Orthopedic Associates play of the week.
There we go.
All right, guys. I think, as we say every week, we're done here.
Well, that means we're going to close things out. So, Bruce Bishop behind the camera, a great big thanks to you. Matt Douglas, as always, good to work with you. The biggest thanks goes to you, the viewers. We hope you enjoyed it. And until we talk again next week on The Blitz, from the Chronicle Telegram Studios, Tim Alcorn saying so long, everybody.